You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Chiro Thin, Universal Tractioning Systems, Chiro Moguls, Zingit Solutions, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Evers Coaching Systems, Rhino Coaching, Chiro Matchmakers, Bax Max, 5-Star Management, and the Goodman Factor. Let's hustle. Chiro live stream. We have the honor of interviewing Dr. John Demartini today, and Dr. Larry Goodman is on with us as well. Dr. Larry is coming in from Miami, Florida, and Dr. John is coming in from New York City, I guess. So I'm coming in from Grand Junction, which is in the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado, where no one lives, and I moved here to hear the birds chirp. So without going too far into this, without offering our sponsorship, this episode is brought to you by ChiroHustle.com. And first things first, I want to welcome John onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
And Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me as well.
All right, so we're going to dive right into these topics of healthcare and chiropractic and how we see the solution for the healthcare crisis in America and how chiropractic fits into that. So first question for you is, how do you see chiropractic a solution for the health crisis in America, John?
Well, affordable healthcare is pertinent to any society, and the cost of drugs and pharmaceutical approaches and allopathic approaches have definitely skyrocketed, and it has to have some sort of a reality base to ground it. Pardon me for going off on this for a second, but I just want to share something. I was meeting with an insurance executive of an insurance company many years ago, and I asked him a simple question: is there a reason why you have challenges sometimes with chiropractors with insurance? And he smiled and he says, "Yes, I'd be glad to answer that." And I said, "So why is it they try to restrict that and everything else?" He said, "Because chiropractors are cost effective, and what happens is people can go and afford to get health care there, and it's not crisis cost. And we can't sell insurance company policies unless there's a major cost. So they don't need to go to chiropractor. They don't need the insurance policies. They can afford it to do it within their own budgets." And I thought that was quite interesting that he said it's because the costs are so mild in comparison to crisis care that that's why they were discouraging, not because it didn't serve, it's because it wasn't helping them sell policies. And he was very open about it. And I think that's a good metaphor, a reference to what is going on. We have the capacity to help empower the people, to give them the capacities with education along with care, to reclaim their wellness and have a higher wellness quotient at a lower fee, and be able to adjust spines and keep the flexibility and mobility and expression of the nervous system, which is the governor and controller of the body, to maximum potential. And I think that is not a crisis orientation. It's not a dependency orientation. It's not a drug orientation. It's a natural approach. And recently they've had articles on neural reflex therapy in medicine. They're found out, which is quite ironic, they found out that if they stimulate the normal reflexes in the body through the nervous system, they're getting greater healing than using a pharmaceutical approach. And I kind of chuckle because I say, well, what they're doing is they're coming closer and closer to the principles of chiropractic that has stood the test of time for the last 130 years or so, and 125 years. So what's interesting is that we're not only cost effective, but we are effective. And there are many people that have been blessed because of going to a chiropractor after spending thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars with alternative, more orthodox approaches. And I'm not saying that they do not have a place. They do. When I was surfing one day in California. I got my ear sliced off. Believe it or not, this was off one time. And I didn't go to a chiropractor to get it adjusted back on. I went to the surgeon to put my ear back on. So I'm grateful for that type of care, but that's not the primary portal of entry into healthcare. I don't think we have an excess of drugs and a deficiency of drug and excess of organs. I think we have a power that made the body, can still heal the body. And even the greatest physiologists, the greatest scientists, the greatest thinkers of our times in biology and physiology, Nobel Prize winners, even Walter Cannon and Claude Bernard, the great physiologist, acknowledge that there's a wisdom of the body that man individually and even collectively can't beat. And the chiropractor is involved in helping that to maximize its expression. Healing comes from within, and the chiropractor honors that and helps people maximize that.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you touched on insurance model, and malpractice is something that is involved in that. And I know that based on the malpractice insurance fees that are paid out by a chiropractor from a medical doctor, there's a huge gap in that. Why do you feel that there's such a rate difference between the chiropractor to the medical model?
Are you asking me that or Larry?
Yeah. Well, either of you, go after it.
Well, we'll both answer. Sure. I think the probability, some people out of jealousy and out of ignorance have tried to concentrate on the occasional events that chiropractic has brought into the media about people that have had health issues as a result of a chiropractor. But when you look at the millions of people that are getting adjusted, millions, and the very, very infrequent any side effects of it, which are revealed from the malpractice insurance. I mean, ours is like insignificant compared to other professions in health. And so I think that says it all. It says that if you want something that's cost effective, that is actually safer, that can re-empower you. I mean, the chiropractor has a relationship with the patient. They interact, they talk, they touch, they listen, they care. And I can't say that every healthcare professional physician is focused on that. There are sometimes pharmaceutical reps, not all, but there's sometimes pharmaceutical reps, and they don't really interact with a person. They don't get as thorough of interaction. And we try to educate patients, try to help them change their lifestyle, trying to be preventive, and try to give them the power from within instead of blaming something like a germ. I mean, the germ theory was popular for decades. And now the microbiome has taken over the germ theory. And now the idea of taking antibiotics to get rid of all germs is just antiquated. Chiropractors never came from that perspective. They believed that there was a higher order in the body, and the physiology was trying to homeostate, and the microorganisms were part of that homeostasis, which is what's now science has proven. And the immune system is now considered a sensory system, and it's actually picking up on the ratios of microorganisms and trying to keep them into a wildlife management, try to keep them ecologically balanced. And that's done by the nervous system when the nervous system is able to express itself, when the spine and spinal cord is functioning properly. And so all the evidence is pointing gradually into the realization of what we've been saying all these years. It's inspiring to watch the science catch up with what has been known for all these century here. So, yeah, it's very rewarding to see the transformation, and I hope that the chiropractor will consistently hold on to the clarity and the certainty of their principles and their philosophical savvy and stick to that, because some are subordinating to outer influences of other health professions, and there's nothing wrong with integrative care, because there are times for everybody. But I think we need to keep to what we do greatest and be greatest at what we do, instead of be kind of spilling over into something and be second in that area. So I think it's wiser for us to honor what we've been sharing all these years, because science is catching up with it.
And even if you look at the areas where the quote unquote risks of the chiropractic care has shown itself, the challenges and the lawsuits have been involving things like rib fractures or alleged disc herniations and neck sprains and strains, or things that are relative to the complications of the misapplication of medicine, the risks of those things pale in comparison, and so consequently do the costs of the settlements. And they're quite rare.
And for me to jump in again, I think that what we've come into terms with is there's a 2-doctor system. I want one to keep me healthy, and I want one to save me from dying. And I think that when we think about John losing his ear, that he got the second type of doctor that saved him from dying. And I think that that's important to give distinction from the lay perspective to the doctor perspective, that we want to have a multiple group of people that are taking care of us and aiding to our health.
Well, you know, when I was in professional practice in the 80s, there was still a bit of animosity between health professions that was still emerging, changing at the time. And then the Wilkes case in chiropractic, which is the antitrust lawsuit, kind of cleared that, because what it did is it made it kind of illegal for other professions to misrepresent what we do and our background in education. And because they were trying to market us out of existence, because they were scared we were taking market share and getting greater results. And so since that time it changed. But at that time, you know, I believe that there was true moments when my patients needed a gynecologist, or needed a podiatrist, or needed an orthopedist, and needed these specialists. So what I did is I put out a letter out to a lot of different health professionals and said, you know, I come across patients that require your services. If you would love to chat and discuss the possibility of interprofessional relationships, please contact me. Well, I got an average of about 30 other professionals communicating with me. I went out there and I went to lunch with them, and I took them by my office and I educated them what I did. Most of them were uninformed. They did not know what we did. They did not know what our education was. And when I educated them and informed them, most of them became patients and referred many of them. And I had beautiful relationships with them, because on a percentage of my patients, I had patients that needed gynecological background or needed specialized care. And sometimes I would have oncological patients that I would ask to have those as follow-up referrals. So I built a beautiful relationship with many of these, and there was a few that were uneducated and biased, and that's to be expected. And there's some chiropractors that sometimes are biased and they're polarized and they're not understanding the value of all the different professions. But I think that one of the things that we do is we honor the wisdom of the body. And people have sometimes, you know, say, well, that's sort of esoteric. No, it isn't. I can show you some of the greatest scientific journals by the greatest physiologists acknowledging an inborn intelligence. They even call it an innate immune system still to this day. And they understand that, and they don't deny that, because any ego of any individual that thinks they know physiology greater than a cell, and that cell's been around for 4 billion years, if they think they know that, then they need to be humbled, because there's a wisdom that we're learning about. We didn't even really understand epigenetics until the last few decades. And now we're understanding the wisdom of how our perceptions affect physiology. And we're now realizing that a lot of the reflexes and associations in the body are profoundly homeostatic and trying to help us maximize our potential. And when we make an adjustment, we use that energy in the body effectively to try to normalize the body. So if a chiropractor is doing what they're trained to do, and they're sticking to the basics and they're following the procedures that they've been taught, they can do an enormous contribution to the healthcare system at a very cost-effective way. And you know what? I don't know. I know, Larry, you've been with me. We've been both in practice since the 80s, I think.
Yep.
And I'm absolutely certain I saw things in that office that no other profession could provide. I mean, I had a young girl and her mother come into my office many years ago. And the second she would turn her head to the side, she'd go dizzy and start to faint. And she was on a swinging, and she fell off the swing and landed on her head, and literally moved her atlas, her top vertebra, way over on the side, and it was cutting off the vertebral artery going up into the brain. And if she turned her head, it was cutting off the blood supply. Now, they did $200,000 worth of scans and tests and everything else, and they couldn't find out what the problem was. Somebody told her to go to me. And I went in there and I palpated her atlas, and it was so far over anybody without even knowing any experience. You go, whoa, that seems odd. And I took a little activator, which is a little thumping spring-loaded gun kind of thing, and I tapped it very gently back into proper place. And she was able to turn her neck and she could play. A simple adjustment compared to $200,000 worth of wild goose chases. A simple adjustment allowed that girl to go play again. And if she hadn't had that adjustment, she might have died from just having a stroke from her head, or possibly had a stroke. So the reality is there's a place, and we have to educate people on where that place is and not minimize it, not exaggerate it. But at the same time, I don't know of anybody who can be checked, adjusted, and kept in alignment without having benefits to their body.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Legacy Wealth Management, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Chiro Thin, Universal Tractioning Systems, Chiro Moguls, Zingit Solutions, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Evers Coaching Systems, Rhino Coaching, Chiro Matchmakers, Bax Max, 5-Star Management, and the Goodman Factor. Let's hustle.
Even patients who are in conjunction with other professions still benefit from the adjustment.
I can only speak to my experience down here in Miami, where the medical community has been so open that I had the good fortune to function as adjunct faculty at the medical school. And what there really is, I just like to clarify, is there's not so much an anti-chiropractic point of view anymore. What there really is at this point is they just don't know. And when you present the information about what the state of the art of chiropractic is today, and the science that validates the chiropractic principle today, I have found over the years that not only will the medical doctor refer, but they can actually become an effective part of the team management approach to healthcare. And I really think that's a lot of where the future is going to go.
Yep, so true. So it's made a big change in the last 35, 40 years.
Yeah.
And John, I heard you say something about epigenetics. And I think that as we discuss that type of mindset or what that means, that is the chiropractic lifestyle, correct? Like if people start eating right, they think right, they move right, and they get adjusted, these have a profound influence on the second chapter of someone's life.
Well, unquestionably, the foods we eat have an impact on our physiology. I think anybody who would deny that would need to, have maybe their head examined. Anybody who denies the idea of psychology effects on physiology also need to have their head examined, because there's no question that if we perceive challenge more than support, and we have our autonomic nervous system polarized and lateralized towards the sympathetic side continuously and chronically, we can epigenetically methylate various aspects of histones and DNA and cause changes in the expression. And some of those things we've seen is actually changes in the arrangement of DNA. And there's now evidence of even cancers being formed from these chronic stresses and various illnesses. So anything we can do to help bring poise and presence and purpose and higher productivity to the patient and increase their resiliency and adaptability through education and adjustments, it helps. You really have to be ignorant to not see the evidence and ignore the evidence that's there today to support that contention. So, I'm a one that used to educate my patients. I had classes every night. I educate them. I want them to be preventive in nature. Not all of them did it. Those that didn't, I treat them as needed. But I was more of the educator. I think, Larry, you've also been quite involved in making sure that we educate our patients, because educated patients that are enthused about the results they have usually help transform their families, and impact their communities more effectively. I did a very interesting view back in the 80s going into the 90s. I started keeping records not just of their physical responses, but in all 7 areas of their life. I wanted to know what quotient, I kept records of these things, quotients of how inspired they were about their life and grateful they were in their life. I looked at how their relationships were going. I looked at how productive they were at work. I looked at their social interaction and measured these things on patients. And many people don't realize that there is a spillover into each of the primary areas of life. Their mental capacities are more resilient and more adaptable and more creative. Their business capacities and productivity go up. Their income. We actually showed in our office that we took 1,000 patients and we looked at where they started in their income, and we looked 2 years later at what their income was versus what they spent on healthcare. Across the board, there was a 97% increase in income. So it was proven that it didn't cost to go to a chiropractor. It actually paid. It actually rewarded them by preventive care. And so that's what America could benefit by, that realization. But I saw it firsthand in my office with patients, monitoring incomes during that time, monitoring the 7 areas of life, their inspiration, their mental faculties, their business capacities and productivity, their income, their relationships with their spouses, their social interaction and network numbers, and how they had in their physical parameters. And there was across the board more than what people think. They think, oh, I got my back pain and my back pain's over. Their entire body and life was impacted by the chiropractor, not only from the adjustment, but also from the psychological adjustment of somebody guiding and directing and holding them accountable in their life.
I was just going to say, it's a linguistic, interesting coincidence that the word we use to describe the chiropractic care is an adjustment. And when we speak of somebody being in a good, healthy mental state, we discuss them and describe them as being well adjusted. I think that's just another demonstration of the truth of what John's saying.
Yeah, the thing is that the word add, just like the adductors, bring things into the center. And just means bring things into balance. And ment means the mind, mental. So adjustment means bring the mind and body back into balance and bring it into homeostasis, which is that's what all physiology is trying to do, a negative feedback system to try to bring homeostasis from the perturbations that they face across their life. And so we are literally doing what the body's innate wisdom is trying to do, bring things into adjustment. And we do it with our hands. We don't do it with, all the high technology. We don't even need the extreme high technology. We do something with our hands. And that's why in some cultures, when chiropractors go to even underdeveloped cultures and countries, there are flocks of people coming running to them because they can see that they can do it in a cost-effective manner. People in South America and Mexico and Africa. I was in the Jokan Temple in Tibet, and I was there, and I started adjusting people in the Jokan Temple. And in less than 10 minutes, we had 250 people gathered, and they were wanting an adjustment. And it was interesting. And there was a dentist there, and the dentist was directing traffic to people to get adjusted. And what was interesting is then the people from the police group came in there and go, what's going on? And they didn't understand what was going on. So we had to educate them, and then they got involved. So people have a yearning to have something that's cost effective that can change their life. And people were literally transforming from one adjustment in front of our eyes. So
Jim is very active, and we're both very active in supporting the mission trips that take place today all over the world, bringing chiropractic to the populations that you're describing, John.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think what you were describing earlier, John, was your early resonance with the Demartini method. When you said that you were like doing these analysis to see what was being affected on these 7 divisions of people's lives. And back in the 80s, now 2019, you're still teaching this stuff, correct?
Well, I developed a methodology that's they're doing a study right now at Keio University in Japan on its impact, because I developed a methodology that helps dissolve grief when people have lost loved ones. I've been doing it really since 1984, and I've done it on 3,500 70 people now. And it's a very powerful tool in resolving grief. And what that does is that when a person's having grief, they're tense, their immune system's affected, their cardiovascular, digestive system's affected. So it's a simple 4-step process that has so far shown amazing results. I mean, it's been 100%. We used it in the Christchurch earthquake, the tsunami in Japan we were brought in for, the earthquake that happened 2 years ago in Japan, and China earthquake. We were involved in that, and it's cost effective. So it's a chiropractic principle applied now to psychology of bringing an adjustment of the mind also into balance to help physiology. So if we come in and we keep that balanced and we keep the body balanced and we help them in their nutrition to balance it, we're doing something that's cost effective, that's preventive, that gives them their power back. And it doesn't require tremendous technology, but it does have tremendous impact.
It's brilliant stuff, John. Whenever I get a chance to hear you speak so eloquently about the things that are going on for you that you've been able to implement with others, it's really an honor to be able to just get on the call with you today. I know that we're coming up on the edge of our time with each other today, but I have one big question for you. Where do you see the chiropractic profession in the next 20 years?
I'm gonna say something that's gonna probably be a little bit odd. I was asked that question in Toronto when I was speaking to about 200 chiropractors. And a gentleman asked me that question, and I said, if you're asking me that question, you're not a leader. Because if you were a leader, you'd be telling me where you're taking it. So I tell people it's going to go wherever the leadership is inspired and visionary to take it. And who that is, I tell people, if you don't like where I take it, then step to the plate and take it and lead it where you want to take it. Amen. It's going to go where the leaders take it. And if the leaders see the vision, whoever has the greatest vision, whoever has the greatest space and time horizons, whoever has the most certainty, and whoever has the most knowledge and the biggest network is going to direct it. And so I see it growing because of people like yourself and myself and Larry and others are inspired by what it can do for people's lives. And so that's what's going to happen. It's going to keep emerging with inspired leaders, and they may all not be on the same page exactly, but they're going to keep it alive in their own different fractions based on what they're inspired to do.
100%. I share that view. And I think the other point, just to borrow one of the principles that I learned from you, John, is that the maximum evolution that is occurring within the profession does occur at that border of support and challenge. And we're at it now. And I think probably every era, there's been the perceived challenge to the chiropractic principle, to the chiropractic profession. And it has thus far stood the test of time. And I think it will. In fact, I'm certain that it will. And I gladly take the mantle and do my part in any way that I can, which is why I'm glad to be here on this call today.
Yeah, and I just want to congratulate both of you for making some time today to be on the Chiro Hustle live stream. If you guys want to check out all of our episodes, go over to www.chirohustle.com. Just want to thank everybody that's been on with us today, all of the guests, Dwayne Hoskins. I'm going to take a moment to give some recognition to the people that were on with us. Nicole Maddox, thank you for being on with us. Alda Tover, Kat, Sarah, and Scott Hutchinson. Thank you, all of you, for participating in this live today. I want to thank John Demartini for offering his wisdom to the chiropractic profession, and Dr. Larry Goodman for offering his wisdom to the chiropractic profession. Is there anything I didn't ask you guys that you'd like to share today?
I'll say this, that whoever's out there, chiropractor, chiropractic assistant, spouses, whoever is there, give yourself permission to do something extraordinary with the profession by caring with a greater capacity than any obstacle that you might see. Any obstacle will ultimately be on the way to a person who has a mission and a vision. The authentic you is profound and very powerful. Don't subordinate to any other profession or to any other individual, but let the voice and the vision on the inside become louder than all opinions on the outside, and dedicate your life to doing something extraordinary on planet Earth as a profession that provides natural health care and wellness quotients to people that deserve to have it. And don't let anybody on the outside interfere with the vision on the inside, because you have something profound to do. And don't subordinate, as I said, just keep persevering. If we keep doing every day the highest priority actions we can do to make a difference, which is adjusting subluxations and spreading the message, nothing on the planet, no mortal, no other institution can interfere with an immortal idea that the chiropractic profession has been based on.
And Larry, do you have any last words?
In the immortal words of my good friend John Demartini, I am blessed to do what I love and love what I do and get handsomely rewarded for it. And so I know is John, and so are you, Jim. And this is my invitation to all of the profession, is to seek it that way, and you will find it.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, once again for being on the morning edition of the Chiro Hustle live stream. And I just want to thank all of our viewers once again. If you guys want more episodes, come over to chirohustle.com, and we'll catch you on the next one. Is it okay if I close out, gentlemen?
Yep.
Thank you for your time and for our opportunity to share today. And thank you.
All right. Well, you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.